catch up with itself. Okay, so the Hangout is on air now. Okay, this is a G4 guitar teacher group session. What we're going to do today is talk mostly about group teaching, and then we'll have maybe some extra questions at the end to cover some different topics, but ideally this session will be focused on the group teaching. Now, Michael, I know that you sort of instigated this, so I'm just going to start straight with you because I want to get to what you want to talk about without, sort of digressing, because I will digress, as you know, get off track at some point. So let's just get straight for what you're experiencing, and then we'll talk about it and we'll try and resolve it as best we can. Over to you.
Okay, cool. So basically, my specific situation or scenario that I wanted to discuss. I've got a student who has recently been put into a group. He did his first 5 weeks, and side point, he's got 2 older brothers that have been learning with me for a few years, and they're really good with their practice. They have been. So his main goal, he's a bit younger than them. His main goal is to catch up to them. So he, in the first 5 weeks, I put him on junior level 1, and he got through all of that, no problems. His dad is really involved in the lessons, comes in, writes notes, goes home, practices with them. So he got through the checklist within that first 5 weeks. Then joined into a group, and that's over the last 4 to 5 weeks I've been adding students to that group. Basically, as you know, when you're starting a new group like that, you've sort of got to, allow for them to get to know one another and make sure they're all on the same page. So basically, the father called me and said he was a bit concerned. Well, his concern was that the child or the student was frustrated because he hasn't progressed at the same rate through the next checklist. Because I've been trying to balance them out and sort of get them all playing the same thing together and stuff like that. So I can kind of understand where he's coming from, and I know that it's really on me. Like I need to find a way to keep the momentum going while still creating bringing these groups together. And I said that to him. I said that when groups start off, there's a couple of weeks where it needs to the wheels have to sort of start spinning, and it might take a couple of weeks for that to start happening, but don't worry, it's going to happen. So I guess I just wanted to get some advice on that, like how how can I keep the momentum going as best as possible, I guess.
Okay, so just to clarify, how long has he been learning for now?
So it would be probably coming up to 10 weeks, 9-10 weeks.
Okay, so it's very early days. All right, so he joined the group how long ago? How many group sessions has he had?
Right after the 5-week intro, so week 6. Actually, no. It's probably been about 12 weeks now, because he's had at least, he was away for 1 week. So yeah, he's had at least 5 group lessons. So yeah.
Okay. But in the 5 weeks, you're saying that he sort of went really quickly and he finished the first level or something? Did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Obviously, for him to get through the first level, sorry, how old is he again? I missed that bit.
He is 8.
8. All right. Okay. So he's an 8-year-old. He came in, and within 5 weeks, he'd finished junior level 1, and now he's on to junior level 2, and he's joined the junior level 2 group. He obviously had the skills already to be able to get through junior 1 in 5 weeks. It means he came.
He's done a year of piano, and he's just very quick with learning. He's very musical. He's already got a good sense of rhythm and all that kind of stuff. And basically he just started, and I put him into a group with other people that have just started. One of them is also doing piano, but the other 2, I think, are just starting from scratch. So there is a bit of discrepancy. So he's in a group of 4 now. Yeah.
Okay. So I think probably the real problem there, I don't have all the details yet, but my guess is that he's gotten through that first level, and the kind of cause and effect here might be sort of out of place in that he got through the first 5 weeks because he has a musical history. It was really just a matter of finding out where he was. So he took that first 5 weeks just to find, okay, this is where you're at. So the father, so correct me if I'm wrong here, the father's thinking the private lessons are better than the group. Is that what he's thinking?
Not necessarily. He just felt that he just feels that the some of the structure or the momentum has been lost because basically during the 5 week intro it'd be like you'd come in and I'd say, look, let's look at the checklist here. How did you go with this? How did you go with that? Yeah, tick tick tick. All right, let's work on this thing on the checklist. Whereas now I'm sort of covering a more broad thing and going, okay, let's all start with picking. Let's pick 2 skills. Let's do our scales and our chords. What are you guys all working on for that? Let's do that, and then go from there.
Okay. So yes, I'm just going to sort of dig down to the problem here. I'm going to do the Koichi 5 questions until we sort of get to what the real problem is. So we understand that he's 8 years old, that he's had a year of music, piano history. The first 5 weeks, all I can conclude from that is that you were really just finding where he was at. When you said go home and practice this, he could do it already. Like, I mean, maybe not exactly do it, but he knew it well enough that he could go home and learn it very quickly. So if you took a complete beginner, never picked up an instrument before of any kind, and you said this is a C scale, then that complete beginner will go, well, what's a C scale? Whereas someone who's been playing piano and playing C scales, major scales on the piano for a year, knows exactly what a C scale is, and so they're just relating what they know on a piano to the guitar. And my guess is also if there's been a guitar in the house or somebody else plays guitar, he's probably been playing with it anyway. So, he hasn't come completely green. So if we sort of say, well, that's the case, and now he's joined the group, and the momentum is the father might feel that now there's 2 possibilities from what I'm gathering so far. One is that he's hit his point now where he's not going to progress through junior level 2 like he did junior 1, because junior 1 wasn't really about learning, it was about finding out where he was. And you found that he's on junior 2, so now he's come to this point where it is actually hard for him. That this is the level that he's at, that he needs to work in order to sort of move to the next level. So where he was getting ticks for the first 5 weeks, now he's not getting those ticks. So that causes a bit of a feeling of a loss of momentum for him and even his father, which a lot of these things, as once they understand it, that can be explained away. So, if the father will get that, he'll understand, okay, it's his piano training that got him through junior level 1, no problem. His piano training will not get him through junior level 2. He now needs to work. This is where the real work begins. So don't expect ticks every week, because it's not going to happen. That's one scenario. The other scenario is that the father understands that there's no problem with that, but he feels that the group is not appropriate for his son. In other words, there are beginner students in there who really shouldn't be. He feels it shouldn't be with his son because his son's a junior level 2, and these other kids are like junior level 1 beginners, and therefore he feels like his son's hanging around waiting for something to happen while you're teaching the junior ones. So that's my assessment so far. So if you can correct me or tell me what you think from this point, then we'll sort of take it forward.
It could be a bit of both. I think the first scenario I did sort of cover with him. I said, look, junior level 1 is, because Jeffrey, he already has some musical experience. It was going to be very quick. But junior level 2 does take a lot longer to get through because it is a lot harder. In some cases it may take up to a year or whatever. It just depends. So I sort of said that to him. I think, as I said, like progressively over the 5 weeks, it was basically just the 2 students in the group, and then a couple of weeks later I added another one who just finished their intro, and a couple of weeks later I added another one because they were all sort of level 1, and I wanted to group together. I guess I've considered sort of taking him out of the group, but at the same time, all of the other students are moving very quickly too. Like they're all moving, roughly the same rate.
Yep.
So I'd like to make it work if I can.
Okay.
But I guess if I have to, I'd take him out. But that's what I'm trying to avoid, I guess.
Yeah. Well, the way that I would have dealt with that is that I would have said to the father, look, these guys are all going to be fine. They're all going. It's all going to work out. Just hang in there, trust me. And then just say to him, do you want me to give your son some extra work? I'm happy to give him extra things to do if you want me to keep, push him to another level of challenge. So, and that might require a private lesson. You might just say, look, bring him in on Wednesday at 4 o'clock or whatever, or on Saturday. I'll sit down with him one-on-one because I really want him to be in this group because it's not just, and I would explain to parents, it's not just about the content. It's not just about his level. It's about having the kind of the peer support and making friends and these guys sort of growing together with their music and really building a kind of a team spirit. And parents get that. They really understand it and that they appreciate it, but also they want to make sure that their son's not being kind of kept behind or sort of this slow progress. So if you can tackle that, because what you're trying to do, you guys know that I do it with you guys, where I don't just have group sessions. I'll talk to you guys one on one. I'm building the group. I'm building the G4 network as a group environment. So we're sort of sharing in Facebook really on a daily basis and sharing in these kind of group sessions. But I'll also speak to you one on one because I want to make sure that you've got what you need to be successful. Because at the end of the day, my success depends on your success. If you guys fail, then that doesn't look good for me. And I don't want any of you guys failing. I want you guys to be successful. So I'll do whatever it takes. If I have to sit up, as Ben can appreciate, till midnight the other night, I'll do that.
Thanks,
right?
Ben.
You get it right, Ben. So I'll spend 2-3 hours with you if I have to make sure that you get what you need to succeed. Because in the end, that's going to serve me. It's going to make me look good, it's going to make G4 look good, and it's going to make all of us look good, all of you guys. Because if any one of you is doing a poor job, then it looks bad on the whole network. It starts to spread across and people start to talk. So with your students, you want to take that same approach. If you've got a student and this student is somehow not getting what they need, give them a private lesson. Give them a one-on-one session and just say, come in on Saturday. If you've got some students who, I'm going to talk about the slow students who don't practice, the ones who aren't putting in the effort. They don't deserve your time and energy. In fact, if they're not putting in the effort, then what they need is to be told that either you start practicing or I've got to let you go. That's really what you do with the students who aren't putting the effort. But the students who are putting in the effort, who are keen, and who have supportive parents who care enough to tell you these kind of things, they're the kind of students I would say, especially if you know that the group will work, because that's what I get is, are you confident that he'll be okay in this group, Michael?
Yeah, definitely. I think
Yep.
once the ball starts rolling and the most recent students that have been added to the group, once they sort of start to once they catch up with those couple of things that are on level 1, they're all level 2 students really.
Yep.
It's just that the last 2 weeks, I've just been revising a couple of things on level 1, just so that I could make sure that the whole group was comfortable going to that next level and starting level 2. I think the other thing I should mention is that his 2 brothers who have been learning with me for years, they've only been like in a group, just the 2 of them. So it's kind of been like private lessons for them because they've been together, just like a duo sort of group.
Right.
And maybe that's why, he's sort of comparing it with them, and now they are actually in a group of 4 as well, those other 2 brothers. So he was also talking to me about that. But yeah, so it's
It,
possible that
it,
he's sort of comparing it.
it seems to me like he's not sort of well versed enough on the benefits of the group, that he's missing that, and that's where I know a lot of you have that problem. And look, when I first started doing groups, I had the same problem. I realised that people had this idea that private lessons are better, or the less students are in a class. interesting studies that have been coming out. There's so many of them that I've sort of come across in recent times. But one study in the US, they actually the government put literally billions of dollars into hiring more school teachers and actually shrinking the class sizes down. And what happened is that they did it in really as a kind of to win votes. So they it was just like, this is something we're going to do because people vote for education, and one of the main issues they wanted was small classes. But the studies showed that actually small classes made no difference. That there's a size of classes that is too big, of course, but most of the classes in the US, the size that they dropped them down, in other words, they shrunk them by about 20%, made no difference to the outcomes of the students. Absolutely zero difference. But they spent all this money on hiring all these extra teachers. What they should have done was paid the teachers that had more money, because they didn't ask the teachers, what do you want? And the teachers themselves would have said, more money, pay me more. We don't need more teachers. I'm happy with the 30 kids that I've got. Or what? I think they went from something like the average class being around 25, 26 and bringing it down to about 18 or 19. And the teachers, what they wanted was to be paid better. And by having a higher rate of pay in the schools, you attract better people into the schools and you attract better teachers. And you create just a better environment because people are getting paid. It becomes a good industry. But what happened is that because they shrunk the class, they didn't do it based on any research of whether it was better, whether they got better outcomes, and the result was there were no better outcomes. So there's this myth around the private lessons, or the smaller the classes, the better they perform. The reality is that it's nothing to do with class size, and it's everything to do with teacher. They would do better to invest that money into more teacher training to get those teachers to know how to deliver better lessons. That would have been a much better investment of their money than hiring more teachers and creating smaller classes. So, but that's what the voters wanted, and it comes back to the old sort of we talk about crowd wisdom, but most scholars will tell you crowd wisdom is actually wrong. In most cases where the crowd decides, it's the wrong decision, because most of the crowd is not educated on a particular topic. It's like if the Australian government here, or the American government, UK government, said to the people, what rate of tax should we pay? Most people would probably say 1 or 2%. They wouldn't want to pay much tax, right? But you'd soon find the infrastructure drop away in the country very quickly if no one was paying any tax. So what people want, what the general people want, is more from a kind of either a narrow, uneducated view or a selfish point of view. So this is where you guys as the teachers are the professionals, and what I'm trying to do is make sure that you guys understand what, from the point of view of group teaching, the benefits to it. Because I not only know from the research that I've uncovered, but I also know from my own years of experience that teaching groups is actually I've got all the stats that I kept over the time that I did it, and group teaching actually works better. And so what we're trying to do is that when you've got a parent in doubt, that parent really, from what I can understand, correct me if I'm wrong, is thinking that the group is, because there's 4 kids in a class opposed to 2, that it's not such a good deal, that suddenly he's getting half the value that he was before. So, and it can be hard to change that once you're sort of in there, but what you're wanting to do is really educate people across the board who come into G4 and come into your school on the benefits of group teaching. And this is why teachers, and I ask a lot of teachers, most teachers teach private out there, and those who do teach group teach private and group. There are very few people who teach just group, and that's where we're different. That's where we really stand out from the crowd, is we just teach group. And when you teach private and group, there's a contradiction there. You're saying, well, I'll teach you private, or I'll teach you group, whatever you choose, and that's kind of saying, well, private is better than group, but group is just a price saving. And we want to get away from that. We want to say, no, it's not about price. It's about giving you a better experience. because we know group works and we know that it's going to be better for you as a student, especially with kids. So that's, we can still, if you want to throw anything else in, but what I'm sensing is that the actual father is not convinced that the groups, especially groups of 4 or 5, are a better deal than his 2 kids learning, just together. Would you say that's the truth, or what would
Yeah,
you say?
I think that's probably the case. I mean, I chatted with him for about half an hour and just sort of explained a lot of what you said just then as well. But I guess after thinking about it and, after the conversation, I just wanted some sort of, uh, you know, backup for myself to go, well, I've just explained all this to the parent, but, you know, you kind of question yourself and say, well, am I doing the right thing by that? And am I, I guess I just wanted, some sort of reassurance
Yeah, right.
that, I've said the right thing and that kind of stuff. But also, I think the other thing that he said was that the actual student himself was the cause or the reason behind his call, because the student says his name's Jeff. He's a funny little kid. He
Yeah.
likes recognition, as do all kids.
Just remember,
But apparently,
Michael, sorry, just remember this is being recorded, so don't use names. Just,
okay, sorry, yeah, um,
yep,
yeah. He basically he wants to. He's been going ahead and practicing different things, like us going ahead and practicing extra exercises. And when he comes into the lesson, all he wants to do is show me what he's been doing. But obviously, it's not his show, so I can't stop the lesson and say, oh, show me what you've been doing all the time, So, but I think that's and so he's kind of getting frustrated, and then he's expressed that to the father, and I think that's part of the reason why the father's called me as well.
okay, right. He's wanting more of a private kind of lesson experience of coming and showing you what he can do, but because you're in a
Yeah, I think
group,
that's how we started off. Yeah.
yeah, okay, all right, yeah. So I understand, yeah. So it's probably a period of adjustment, and if he wants to show you what he's doing, that's great, because it means that you're kind of his hero, and it's really important to him that you acknowledge what he's doing. But it's in most cases, I found that I could really acknowledge each kid without having to spend 10 minutes having them show me everything that they could do. Um, and that's what you want to do, get in the habit of acknowledging them, because that's really what they're wanting. They want to show you something so that you can then say, wow, that's great, fantastic, so that they feel, that's what they want. They want that reassurance. And believe it or not, we all do. We all, whether you're telling your own mother or father, whether you're telling your girlfriend, your wife, your brother, your sister, someone, we like recognition. We like to go, I still do, I know I like to talk to my mum and my dad and say, hey, this is what I've been doing, and have them go, wow, that's great, good to hear, Dad. So we all want that kind of recognition, and so what you want to be able to do is deliver that without it getting sidetracked, so you don't end up spending all this time with one student, or have to go through all 5 students and spend 5 minutes with each student getting them to show you what they've done in the week, your lesson's gone. So do you want to talk about that quickly, about how to do that, how to give them some quick reassurance without getting bogged down?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, the way that I would always do it is I always make a bit of time at the beginning and the end of the lesson. So the beginning was really about looking at their practice logs and letting them know that that's what I cared about, and actually going around individually, each one of them, and it literally takes 10 to 20 seconds. And I would look at their practice log and I would go, fantastic, give me a high five, bang, that's it, doing well, Jake. Go to the next one. Pete, look, practice, excellent, you're right on the money, give me a high five, bang. And if I go to one and they haven't been doing the practice, for example, I'd say, talk to me, John. Tell me what happened. And he'd go, oh, I got busy, blah, blah, blah. And I'd say, but you got to do the practice, right? You understand you've got to do it. You're cool with that, right? You understand that that's what you need to do to turn up here each week. Yeah, okay. So you're going to make it happen for me? Yeah? Good. Give me a high five. Bang. And then you go to the next one. So you do this kind of positive run around with all your students, routine, every time. And that gets them feeling good at the beginning, and then they don't feel the need to necessarily show off what they do. They still will try, but it's all about conditioning your students. And once you condition your students in a particular way, to behave in a particular way, then they will soon fall into that idea. Now, when they were researching teachers, and I won't go into the whole thing, but basically when they were looking at, in the US, this is another study of which were the top performing teachers, what they found among the top performers was quite simply that they conditioned their students to behave in a particular way, so the students wouldn't waste time. And it was all actually about time. It was how much time they could actually determine how well students were going to do based on how well the teacher managed the time of the students. So a good teacher would take, say, a 5-hour day of classroom time, and that 5 hours, a good teacher would have 80% of that time the students learning, whereas an unorganised teacher could have as little as 50% or less of the time actually learning. The rest of the time was moving chairs around, talking among themselves, not really doing any work, handing sheets out in a disorganised way, all these little things. So time efficiency is actually what makes a better teacher, more than anything. So, and time efficiency comes from making sure your students understand the way the routine works. If you ever played sport as a kid, which I did, you go to football training and the coach would go through a particular scenario. All right, and we'd start off with a bit of a jog. We'd do a 5-minute jog, warm up, and then we'd do some ball skills, and then we'd practice tackling, and then so we'd go through a particular routine. And I played in 2 different teams when I was growing up. One team, the coach was really good. He was actually an ex-first grade player and a really good coach. And he was just so organised in the way that we trained. And 5 of the kids in my team played for Australia. I wasn't one of the 5, but 5 of them ended up playing for Australia. But then I went and joined this other team, which was kind of really bottom of the table. But I went there because a friend was playing for that team. The coach was very unorganised. We wasted so much time. We used to joke around. We'd throw the ball at him when he wasn't watching, and all sorts of stuff. And it just was a completely different result. And the difference was the first coach was very organised in the way that he did things and had everybody following a routine. Now, once parents start to sort of question what you're doing, and even, for lack of a better term, sabotage what you're doing, that's when trouble begins. And you need to really stop it straight away, and you need to ask yourself, why is this parent stepping in? And then to say to the parent, trust me, I've got it under control. And you do it in a nice, friendly, polite way, but you need to be confident that what you're delivering is, you've got a plan, and that the parent may not understand your plan yet, but the more confident you are in delivering your plan, then the more they're going to go, well, I'm going to at least give this guy a go. Because trust me, I had plenty of students early on, as I was sort of building the groups, who were very skeptical about what I was doing. It's the same with G4. There are a lot of teachers out there on the fringes who look at G4 and who are skeptical about what G4 is all about and what we're doing. But that skepticism disappears as you grow. In other words, when they see, it's the social proof, when they see more and more people doing it, if they turn up to your groups and you've just had a full group of 5 coming out all happy and high-fiving, and then the next group coming in, you're high-fiving, and then you've just got this new kid who just joined, that new kid is not going to go, I wonder if this place is any good. The kid's going to be looking, and the parent's going to be looking, wow, these guys are pumped. This is a great place to be. We're in the right place. So that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to create that atmosphere. But remember, in the early stages, you will get, skeptics who are going to sort of say, is this what it's all about? And like for Ben, who's joining us for the first time here today, this is a new experience for Ben. So he's probably looking at this and thinking, okay, well, what are these guys doing? Is this for me? Do I think that they're doing, is this a good place to be? So he'll question all those things, and that's cool, because that's what he should be doing.
Judging you all.
You're judging us all. Good. so, and it's not for us to change. It's not for me to suddenly go, well, I'm going to try and keep Ben happy here. This group is about me thinking about Ben because you guys are all signed up and paying money, but Ben's still sort of on the fence. He's paid his initial kind of ticket in just to check it out. But whether he stays or not will be up to him. But I'm not going to change what I do. I'm not going to suddenly cater for Ben because I want to keep him hanging on. It's for Ben to look at what we're doing and go, is this for me? That's really what he needs to decide. Does that make sense?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
So I guess when I get an objection like that, straight away my thoughts are, you know, oh, am I not doing this right or something? But I guess, you know, when I'm going from what you just said, then I just have to learn to expect that, you know, I am going to come up against it, you know, and yeah, yeah, no, that's good.
Correct. And it could, you need to question as well. So don't think that it's a bad thing that you're sort of questioning whether or not you're doing the right thing. But the person to listen to is not the father. It's to listen to, you know, the group, if you like. You listen to G4. What are we all doing that's working? What are other teachers in your position doing that's working? So again, it's that sort of crowd thing. We don't necessarily, you know, what the crowd says doesn't necessarily mean that's the right thing to do, because the father, you know, if the father, this is where people in business all the time, and I think Stefano and I have spoken about this before, whereas your friends and your family and all these well-intended people will tell you how to run a business, but they don't have any experience in business, and some of them who have experience have failed miserably, lost everything they had. And these are the people that most of us tend to listen to for business advice when they're the wrong people to be listening to. What we need to be doing is listening to people who actually have success, who are very experienced. A good example, which a couple of you guys can relate to, is Bitcoin. Now, you've got this mass kind of thing going on with Bitcoin where there are all these people, there's all this argument about whether Bitcoin will work or won't work. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? The price of Bitcoin will go up and down like crazy. And yeah, it could fail like any business. And it's not even a business, but it could fail. There's no doubt about it. But most of the people who are talking on Bitcoin, it's like they went and interviewed Warren Buffett, asked him what he thought, and that got all over the media. And it's part of his opinion has driven the price down because he's huge rich guy in America, you know, times the richest guy in the world, and asking him, so what do you think of Bitcoin? And he says, oh, I think it's a mirage. I think it'll just disappear in a couple of years. So naturally, all the people who sort of, oh, okay, well, better get rid of my Bitcoin, better sell off quickly because of what he said. You know? And then you've got Mt. Gox that collapses, which is like a business, and they're just a poor business. It collapsed, and lots of people lost Bitcoin. So everyone, oh no, can't trust Bitcoin. Let's get out of Bitcoin. So it collapses, and then you got all the media, you know, running stories on it, etc., etc. But these aren't the people who understand the technology. None of these people who are sort of very vocal on it. And if we use Warren Buffett as an example, he doesn't know anything. He's never bought tech stocks. Just to give you an idea, he's never bought stocks in Facebook, Google, Apple. He's never touched any of those stocks. The stocks that he owns are companies like Wrigley's Chewing Gum, Coke. You know, he loves these old-fashioned kind of businesses. One of his criteria is it has to be something that's been around for at least 100 years. You know, like something that people have been using for 100 years. So Bitcoin to him is just some passing phase. And he really expressed very similar ideas to any of the technology. He would have been there at the internet, the dawn of the internet, saying this is going to blow over in a week or a month. So my point is here, just to get to it, is very quickly that I'm not saying that Bitcoin, I'm not advising any of you to invest in Bitcoin. I would advise you to buy one Bitcoin. Just go and get one or get half a Bitcoin, because it could go to $1 million. It may not, but it could, because of the technology. It's like buying one share in the internet. It's like me telling you to go and, when the internet first started, go and get the domain guitar.com. That's basically what I'm telling you to do. Go and get the domain guitar.com or michael.com. right? Or Alex.com. Those names now are very expensive. If you want to go and buy any of those kind of domains, the very short, popular search type domains, they're going to cost you $1 million or more. So this is really where Bitcoin is, but it may or may not get there. Who knows? You know, the internet may or may not have got there either. So don't go and put your house on Bitcoin because there's a very good chance you'll lose it. But just go and buy one small Bitcoin. Two of the guys who I saw speaking on it recently, like one guy, can't even pronounce his name. It's a very long Indian name or a Sri Lankan name, I think. But he worked alongside. He was one of the early developers of Facebook, early investors and developers of Facebook, and then there's the guys who also were the twins, the Winklevoss brothers, twins, who were also one of the early developers. So these guys know the industry, they know the technology, and these are the kind of guys that I listen to. I listen to what they say and ignore the rest of the press. So that's why I don't have a big investment in Bitcoin. I have a small investment in Bitcoin, but it's just one of those investments where it's based on listening to experts who I think probably know what they're talking about, opposed to people who don't know what they're talking about. So when developing what you're doing, developing anything in your business, try and try and talk to people who have real tested experience, who actually have succeeded in the business that you're trying to succeed in and have succeeded at what you're doing. So rather than parents and the general public. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. All right. Okay. So, does anyone else have any questions on the group teaching?
I have a question about the group again. Oh, after you, Alex.
Okay. It should only be a quick one. It's sort of like when you have a group of like 4 or 5 kids and you have the parents in the room and stuff. It can be, as you know, David, it can be a really, really invigorating, inspiring experience when you do it. But like if it's not working, really stressful. You know, like if you've got some parents sort of sitting over there with their arms crossed, kind of like that. And this has happened, like both sides have happened to me a lot of times. And I actually had it just yesterday. It's funny. The parent actually called me up and said, "Oh, look, our son X has just, he's finding it really difficult being in the group because he's, there's social things going on with him, and he, he feels that the kids in the other group aren't really treating him fairly. It wasn't really relevant to the actual situation. Like, I mean, the group was working fine and everything. But I was basically like, well, look, come in and have a look and see what you think. And it actually turned out okay, but just sitting there the whole time with their arms folded, it's really terrifying having one person judging you.
Yeah.
So I mean, how would you suggest dealing with that sort of situation?
I'm aware. I would always be aware of parents or or kind of what they're thinking and feeling. And again, it's just getting to the bottom of it. Like, what are their concerns? What are they worried about? And taking that time out. Not when you're teaching in the group at that time. That time is for the group, and you just focus on teaching the group. Really, just don't worry about what the parents are thinking or doing. But when you know that, just take a mental note, or take a note, a real note, write it down. That's what I used to do. Always write a note. I'd say, Mrs. Brown is frowning, or Mr. Jones doesn't seem on board, etc., etc. So then what I would do is that once the lesson was, like the day was over or the next day, I would pop them an email or I'd call them up and just say, hi, I'm just doing a call around, just want to make sure that everything's going okay at home because, as you know, I don't get a lot of time to speak to you after the lesson. And then they will open up to you. They will tell you, maybe not at first, but they appreciate the call. They appreciate the fact that you're trying to find out what's their experience, what their experience is like, and whether or not they're completely happy with it. If you do those kind of things early on, then you'll really get through a lot of these problems. Now, you don't need to ring everyone, and you don't need to do it if you think the student's happy and everything's going okay. But what you want to do is ring around. But when you ring them, don't ring. You're obviously not going to ring and say, "Look, I saw you frowning in the background there. I thought, I better give you a ring because things don't look good." What you want to do is ring them and just make it like you do it to everyone. It's just a casual call, and just want to ring up and see how things are going. Really, what I would do, Alex, is in this case, is a case study. I much prefer to look at individual cases and dig down and see what's going on. So, is there anything particular about this scenario? Do you think there's more information you can give me?
Your mic's muted, Alex.
Alex, can you unmute your mic?
Yeah,
We can't hear you. Yep.
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Yep. Good.
The boy has a high functioning level of Asperger's, which really just comes across as being slightly eccentric. I wouldn't have even picked it. But the grandmother in this case is very, I think there are family issues, and the grandmother in particular is very sensitive to his experience of guitar lessons and stuff. And we were having private lessons before, which were okay. And he is actually doing a lot of practice. But he's not quite up to the level that the other kids are up to, which could be quite disheartening for him because he's about 17 and the other kids are like 13. So he's not a long way behind them, but just a call and stuff a little bit. So yeah, in the lesson he gets a little bit up and he's just like, well, a few times I'd get one of the other kids to show him how to do it, and he was kind of like, oh, could you just show me yourself? So it's just there's a bit of friction there. So it's just a combination of him being a little bit just standoffish, and the parent really making a big deal of him, like, he's not a normal boy. I wouldn't have said there was anything terrible, But yeah, so that's pretty much the situation.
Yeah, and look, I'm very careful when when I was teaching, I was very careful not to put kids into these kind of labeling situations where, this kid's got this condition and this kid's got this condition. They're just labels. They don't really mean a lot to me. If they're an extreme case of Asperger's or something like that, obviously they're not going to be able to work in the group. And I wouldn't. But if it's just an unnoticeable situation or a slight, then I'm just going to roll with it, and just work with whatever I've got. And if the parents sense that it's not working, and that's okay, they can take their child out and go and find private lessons for them. Remember, we're not trying to cater to everybody. We're trying to cater for a particular audience, and as you cater for that audience and you really hone in on that audience, then they bring their friends and the reputation spreads. People who go to McDonald's or go to KFC or Subway or any of these kind of fast food restaurants, that food only caters for 1%, maybe 2% of the population. The other 98% don't like it. They don't eat it. They don't go there. They don't want it. We think they do, but they don't. But the 1 or 2% that go to those restaurants are actually very loyal. They go there like every week, and they take their friends with them, and they have their kids' parties at McDonald's and all the rest of it. So they have a very strong loyal audience. Apple Mac is a prime case. Apple Mac sell less computers than any other computer company, but they make more profit than any other company. And that's from their computer division. This is the thing, is that we're not trying to cater for everybody. So if someone doesn't fit into the group scenario, they don't get it, they're not working in a group scenario, then they're not really. It's a team sport. They need to go and play, tennis or something. This is a team sport that we're playing. Cool.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, great. All right, Ben, you had a question?
I did. It was about the private versus the group. And when you were discussing it earlier, you seemed to kind of act as if it was one or the other, and you said don't do one or the other. When we were talking about Michael's student, you said in this case you might want to offer one private one. Would you not sell it as the balance between, so you've got the pros of this and the pros of that, and generally the pros of group are better, so you do group when you can, and then if they need a private lesson, to cover something else? Because it seems a bit weird to try and sell it as group is the only way, what you want to sell it as is group is the one that is generally best, and then in a few one-off situations rather than if you want a private lesson.
Exactly, I'd agree totally. It's not about saying that private doesn't have a role to play. It's about saying that where we promote group, and group is an essential part of learning. So it's not one without the other. But when I say giving them a choice, what I'm talking about is giving them a choice of doing exclusively private or exclusively group. And that's what most teachers do, is they say, well, you can have private lessons or you can have group. And the basic difference between the two, as far as they're selling it, is that the private is more expensive, so therefore it's better. You know, would you like a private room, sir, or would you like, to be in a dorm? You know, it's like, well, obviously a private room is better. I get my own shower, I get a clean bed, blah 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 blah. I don't have to listen to someone snoring. And if you've ever done any traveling like I have, that's the experience you have. A private room, yes, I want a private room. It's better than being in a dorm with 10 other people. But if you want to meet people, there's nothing better than being in a dorm. You'll be very lonely in your private room. So if it comes to selling benefits, if what you're trying to do is sell group lessons, which is what we're doing, then we want to sell them on the benefits of the group lesson. The occasional private lesson is really just a reassurance, and almost it's an affordable bonus to where I say to students, look, yeah, sure, the occasional private lesson is good, but a weekly private lesson and no group is not good. You're missing out on
all the group benefits.
Yeah, exactly. So good. I'm glad you brought that up. Does anyone else have a question? Because I'll just add a few more things to the whole group scenario if no one has a question.
I was going to say, I've just posted up there. Would you charge for like the extra private lesson, or?
No, because when you're running a group, it's highly profitable. And if you're going to charge, then it's going to cost them more, obviously, because if you're charging less for a private lesson, and almost if you're offering it, what you're trying to avoid is to offer it as a product. You don't want to be saying, I've got private lessons over here. You just sort of say, well, I don't do private lessons. That's it. Unless you can pay me $200 or $300 an hour, I'm not going to be teaching, and no one will pay that money. Yes, Michael.
Yeah, just have a point on that. I did that the other day. I pulled aside one of the girls who's in the group, one of the groups of 4, and because she was struggling with the reading, her mum sent me an email and said she doesn't understand this particular thing in the reading book. And I said, oh, that's all right. I'll bring in for a private lesson on Monday. I came in and did it. And the dad was like, oh, well, how do we pick you up for this? And I said, oh, don't worry about it. She practices really hard. It's just one thing she doesn't understand. Quite happy to do it. But by the end of it, he pulled out a $50 note and said, oh, here you go. Take this, take it, because I want to compensate you for your time. I couldn't give it back to him. He wouldn't let me. So, often they just appreciate it so much that they'll just pay you anyway.
Exactly. And, it's all part of the service. It's what we do here. And that's really what you're trying to do. You're trying to create that experience where, if you think about it, you go to, say, a hotel, a good hotel, and you go down to the concierge. The concierge doesn't start charging you for the time that you spend with them, asking questions about, where to go, what to do, etc. So that's part of the service. It's all built into the cost. And that's where, when you have a profitable business model, which is group teaching, then you can add those things on. You can give the students those private lessons here and there as a way, just Michael's example was perfect, and that's exactly what I used to do. I would occasionally say, bring Mary in on Saturday, and I'll just spend some one-on-one time with her. Or if they're a really loyal student, they come every week, and then they're going to be away one week, and they don't want to miss their lesson. I might say, just look, I've got a time on Saturday afternoon, just pop in then, and we'll do a quick 20-minute lesson, because I know how keen you are. So I would do things like that occasionally, but my idea was to get everybody into the groups and have that to be the main. You're building your loyal group base. Same with you guys. I'll talk to any of you guys one-on-one if really needed, but I'll pull it together as a group when I don't think it needs to be a one-on-one conversation. And so it's the model that works. That's really kind of what I'm getting at here is it's the model that works. It's having that group. I know for myself, when I learned guitar, my teacher ran a rock school program where he brought me together with the other students, and I was quite nervous about it in the beginning because it meant being in front of other kids who were actually younger than me and better than me at the time, so it was quite scary and intimidating. But had I not done that, I wouldn't have went to the next level. It was that process of bringing me together with other students that took me to the next level, and I'm still good friends with one of those guys in particular. And we played in bands for years, and we did all sorts of stuff. So the group brings the social element into it, which is what is going to create a more lasting experience for your students. And that's what they don't get from private lessons. Private lessons will work well for certain students. There are some students who will just be totally motivated. You know, they're Joe Satriani freaks or something, and they just want to learn every Satriani piece he ever wrote. And that's cool, and that's the way that they learn, and they don't care about whether anyone else is into it or not. But the majority don't start off like that, especially kids. The majority, they want to be, the social environment really keeps them motivated and encouraged, and it also helps them socially, you know, which is what kids do. And when I hear parents say, oh, you know, he's a bit uncomfortable in the group, I'm like, he goes to school for 6 hours every day and learns in a group all day. How can he be uncomfortable in a group? It's like, this is the way he learns all the time. You know, it's not new. Then he goes and plays soccer after his guitar lesson, and then he's in a group training with the other 10 or 15 guys in his squad. But the kids learn in groups all the time. When parents are saying that my son, my daughter, whatever, is not, you know, working well in the group, that's not what the real issue is. There's something underlying in that issue, and that's where you want to sort of, you know, get into finding out what it actually is. Okay, so what I want to do here, just in the last little bit, is wrap up to just give you a bigger picture of what you're trying to achieve, and that is that most guitar teachers get wrapped up in the idea of, I'm teaching you how to play the guitar. This is what this is all about. There's a big problem with that, and that is that the internet doesn't give the full experience, of course, because they don't get the feedback. But to a certain degree, the internet solves that problem. And it's going to be solving that problem better and better as we go along. It's going to improve. So in the coming years, you're going to see changes with, you know, AI, artificial intelligence, where people are going to be able to ask the computer a question, put their hands up to the computer and say, are my fingers right? And the artificial intelligence will come back to it and say, move your little finger closer to the fret, bend it another 3 degrees, and it'll actually be able to mirror the hand and everything. And this technology is already there, so don't think this is something new. They're actually even going to be able to put like a brace on your hands, on your whole body, and it will position you exactly right. And they're using this with kids who have got like the muscle disorders and so forth, where they can't actually move their bodies properly, and put them in these. They're going to be able to put it on anybody, and this could be for anything, teaching you not just guitar but all sorts of skills. And so your hands will go on the guitar, and it will actually teach you. It will train your muscles to do what it needs to do, so you can become a good guitar player. Right? So your role as a guitar teacher, teaching people how to play, will go into extinction very soon. In the coming years, it might be 10 years away, it might be even 20 years away, but we will soon become dinosaurs if we don't think differently. And the way to think differently is that there's something that computers still can't do and probably won't be able to do anytime in the near future. And that is the ability to bring people together and create a social environment. And when you do that, when you create a social environment within your teaching, and you lead your groups so that you're inspiring and motivating and connecting with them on that kind of level, then that's something that's not going to be replaced easily by computers and the internet. So when you teach your groups, don't be so focused on the how to play guitar. That's covered. The G4 guitar method really covers the how to play. What you're trying to do is inspire them to think big You're trying to shift their mindset, get them to believe in themselves, get them to understand that you can be a great guitar player. It's not a fantasy. You can do it, and condition them, because what happens is that people get conditioned back into they go back to their old ways, because that's what they were often conditioned to believe. If you think about your own situation, any one of you in the next year to 2 years, or even 5 years it might take, but in the next few years can easily be a millionaire. No problem. Any one of you can be a millionaire. I've been a millionaire and I've lost it all. I've done it twice. Right? I've made lots of money, lost it all, made lots of money, lost it all, and now I'm making more money again. Okay, so this is a pendulum, because what happens is I go back to my old habits and old ways of thinking. That, hey, money's to be spent, it's not to be kept. Throw it out there, bang, 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 and then you end up finding yourself in the same situation again. I this time I hope not to go back, but I know the difference is the mindset. It's the belief in what you can achieve. Now, if you're getting stuck in the details, which is where most people do, if you're getting stuck in the insecurities, again, which is where most people do, that's what's going to lead you to question every little detail about your groups. Your groups will never be perfect. There's no point of perfection if you're teaching or your groups. All you're trying to do is improve, get better, look for things that are potential problems, get more and more aware of the things that sort of use up your time, waste your time, get you bogged down. If you guys want to be millionaires, you're not going to do it teaching guitar. You're going to do it being entrepreneurs. The only reason that you're teaching guitar, or the only reason that you're teaching guitar, is one is if you really love teaching guitar, and therefore you don't need to get paid to do it. Be an entrepreneur, make $1 million over here, and then teach kids in the local area for free. That's one way of doing it, if you love teaching guitar. And I hear it all the time. I teach because I love it, I'm passionate, I want to work with the kids. Sure, we'll do it for free. Oh, no, I couldn't do that. Well, then you're not really passionate about it. You're doing it for the money. Be honest with yourself. So to be an entrepreneur means that you're looking at building a business that will make you the money that you want, plenty of money. And being an entrepreneur is actually what drives our whole economy. So don't ever think that being an entrepreneur is something about being rich and greedy and selfish. People who are greedy and selfish, people who only make enough money for themselves, that's selfish. If you only make $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000 a year, and you use that to pay your rent, pay for your food, and go on your holiday, you're not providing for anybody else in the world. You haven't done anything for anybody else, and that's what most people do. The person who makes $1 million or millions of dollars, who provides provides jobs first of all for people, and also provides gives charity. I donate all the time, and I think a few of you guys do as well. But the thing is that if you don't have enough extra money, you can't do those things. So think like an entrepreneur. That's really what I'm telling you to do. So when you're looking at your groups and teaching your groups, don't get too bogged down in the details. Keep moving forward. You should be spending 80% of your time marketing. That should be where the majority of your time is spent. If you're spending the majority of your time teaching and looking for work, so to speak, I know some of you have got jobs. You're working in your job. If you're not spending 80% of your time marketing, then your business is not growing, and it won't grow very quickly. It'll grow slowly. So if you want to get to 100 students, that's what I'm here to do. Is I'm here to inspire, because I know each of you can have 100 students within a year. No problem at all. They're the people I want to work with. If you don't want 100 students, then G4 is probably not for you. If you just want 20, 10, 20, 30, 40 students, G4 is not really for you. If you want 100 plus students, you want to be an entrepreneur, G4 is for you. That's what I want to do with you. And 100 is just the first point. I just want to get you to that point, so you get past that kind of hard part. And I know a few of you are getting close, and I know a few of you have gotten bogged down over the years and gotten caught in the details. So let's push the details aside and just move forward and keep looking at, did I get 10 new students? Did I grow by 10 students this month? If the answer is no, why not? What didn't you do enough of? What did you get caught up in? How did you spend your time? Does that all make sense? I just wanted to sort of throw that at you at the end here. Yeah. So you're not getting too bogged down in the group teaching. Because that's where I'm finding that people are getting stuck, is they're getting into, oh, this mother's not happy, that kid doesn't seem quite happy, you know, it's a bit stressful, blah, blah, blah. Don't worry about it. Just move on. All right. Any last questions? Feel free if you've got a question.
Just going right back into the nitty-gritty, flying in the face of everything you just said. In terms of note-taking, I've experienced this, and I know James and Jacko, my new teacher, have. I find it very difficult to take notes while I'm teaching at the same time. Do you have any suggestion for exactly how to do it? Like, I mean, I don't know if you know what I mean by the actual, like, it's difficult to multitask like that. I mean, yeah, what would you suggest?
I do know what you mean. When this is a kind of a system building process, right? If I've got a job that I do, let's say my accounts, and you guys are probably in the same situation. You go to your accounts and you look at all, you enter the PayPal feed or your bank feeds, and then you've got to go and reconcile your bank accounts, and then you've got to prepare your BAS or your tax or whatever. So you do all that, you do your profit and loss statements, the whole thing. Now, you could teach someone to do that, but you think, it'd take me weeks to teach someone else to do that. I can do it myself much faster. But the problem is that you're spending, say, half an hour a week doing your accounts, and it might take you 10 hours to teach someone to do the same job and to do it how you want it done, and you might even go through a few people before you get it done. But by doing that, systemizing it and teaching someone else, then you don't have to do it ever again. You've got someone else to do it, and then you've got someone who can train someone else as well. As your business grows, they can train the next person to assist them. So then as you 2 or 3 or 4 people. With your teaching, and where I'm using this analogy is that taking notes. So if I've got this kind of notepad here, and I realise, okay, I've got this problem here. This student is, every time he comes in, he always complains about the air conditioning or something. Right? So you don't take a note of that. And so the next week he comes in, he's still complaining about the air conditioning, and the third week happens, another student complains about the air conditioning. So you've got this going on, but you're not actually writing a note down. The problem will catch up with you in the end, and it will bring you down. So what you want to do is even though in your early days of your lessons, remember you're going to get to a point where your groups are all full, where you've got 5 people in a group, and that's when it gets really hard, because you do need to give pretty well your full concentration. But if you do it while your groups are growing, early stages, just 2 in a group, 3 in a group, and you're taking notes. I used to come away every session, especially in those early months, with full A4 page of notes, so at least 20 to 30 notes of questions, of things that I needed to change. As you know, I've spoken about this before, developing the checklists came through me taking notes. Developing the different methods of teaching, the different ways that I dealt with processes such as people paying. And I come in, people are giving me cash at the beginning of the lesson, how do I deal with this? Et cetera, et cetera. So that I go away, what are the options? Paper, great. So all these little problems that were coming up, I was taking notes down. Now, even though it slowed the lesson down at times, even though there I was jotting away, students just thought I was writing notes about them. But I wouldn't leave them hanging. I would sort of say, do something, and then I would write the notes down. So writing your notes down, developing your teaching and developing your business is priority 1, because that's what you're really doing. You're developing and building your business. You guys right now, and I use this analogy of, imagine if everyone who took up guitar had to build their own guitar. Right? And that's what you guys are doing. You're building your own business. You're building it from scratch. So what G4 really is a blueprint for a business. Build it off this blueprint. Whereas most people out there who are building their guitar schools have no blueprint. But they're building a guitar with no plan, no blueprint, nothing. They're building it from scratch. And so what is the likelihood, and I'm open to answers here, what's the likelihood if you went and built your first guitar, or anyone went and built their first guitar, that it would work perfectly? Not good, right? Very unlikely. In most cases, it wouldn't be playable. And you'd probably have to build 10 or 15 or 20 guitars before you got it right. But that's what happens in business, and that's why so many people fail, is because they don't get it right. And the way to build a business is through taking notes, is through going through and actually looking at what you're doing and going, okay, this is not working, that's not working. And Ben and I had a really good session the other night, and he asked so many great questions. And I think he thought maybe he was taking up too much of my time, because we spent quite a lot of time there. But the questions were really good, because what he's trying to work out is what he needs to know to build his guitar right. So he's got a guitar that works. Before he goes and spends hundreds of hours building a guitar and realizes that the plan was all wrong, it didn't work, he's investigating and finding out what he needs to know before he actually builds his guitar. So when you're think of your businesses now as the development stage. You're not going to make $1 million until you develop the business. And the best way to develop the business is to take notes. Because you are there, you're present, you see yourself as a third person, step back and look at yourself as you go and take those notes. If something comes up that you want to note down, if you don't note it down there and then it'll get forgotten, because we just don't retain information very long. That's how we are. And that's why this recording, you guys can go back and listen to this recording and you'll be able to take notes the second time round. You don't necessarily need to take, and when I go to these seminars now, they actually say, don't take notes. We're going to give you the recording. After we've done this, go back and listen to the recording and then take your notes then. Because stay engaged now and then take your notes on the second listen. Does that answer the question, Alex?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. So the note is the priority. Take the note. And you get to a point where you're going to take less and less notes anyway. So. All right. Any other questions? Yeah, Ben?
Yeah, I was just going to say, going back to the Michael's original problem,
yeah.
I was just wondering about the handicapping, because he was talking about people on checklist 1 and checklist 2, but obviously some of them seem like you could quite easily get the different levels being played at the same time, but some would be more difficult to compare. I was just wondering what Michael was doing, or if I'd missed that.
Michael, do you want to answer that, what you're doing?
Sorry, I didn't quite understand the question.
It was just, he was saying, he asked you whether they were on junior level 1 and junior level 2, and you said that the one who was in private was basically level 2 already, and the other ones weren't quite there.
So you've got some, junior level 1, junior level 2. How are you working it together when they're on two different checks?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's only literally, as I said, there's only 1 or 2 things off junior level 1 that a couple of students haven't gotten ticked off yet or didn't have last lesson. So really, I was just using, it's kind of saying, okay, we're just going to, basically said to the class, we're just going to revise this. They all knew what was on the checklist. They all knew what to do, but a couple of them hadn't mastered it yet. So yeah, so basically I just said, we're just going to review this skill today and see how they're going. For some of them, they've been doing it for a few weeks. Others, they'd only just heard about it the week before. So, but I think in general, like, I've just put a student who is on level 1. She's been playing for about 7 years, but so she's quite, she's got quite a good ability. I've put her in a senior level 3 group because she's really good friends and plays in a band with one of those students. So they're good mates, and that works really well because all I say is, okay, today we're practicing reading or scales or whatever, and I basically just go over those skills. So for the more advanced students, I just make their task a little bit more difficult. So we might, for instance, we went through the second string reading exercises, the really simple G4 exercises for second string. So this new girl, she's only just sort of getting into reading music now, so she's just doing that, and the other students, they're playing it in the next position on the neck, or even playing a third above, and stuff like that. So so this is something that I've been learning how to do. It took me a while, as David will tell you. I've been learning to do it for a while, so it took me a little while to get used to it. But yeah, basically you just got to set the bar a little bit higher for the students that are further ahead. Give them, the same exercise, but make it challenging for each student.
Yeah. I was thinking the wider apart their abilities are, the easier it seems like it would be to handicap, because you're not going to be crossing over too much, and then it's not going to be, I can't go faster because it'll be too hard, but I can't add something because it'll be too hard.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it is worth just getting them. If the student isn't that far ahead, then you might just have to get them to do the same thing. Even if the further ahead student thinks, oh, why am I doing this again? I just normally just bring the point across and say, well, we need to revise this stuff just to make sure we can 100% master it. Because in our own practice, we've got to do the same thing. I say that to my students all the time. Like, I know the C scale really well, but I still practice it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. They're in terms of an artist, they're brushstrokes, and you're always improving your strokes. And that's really, it's the skills. And I think with when we're doing this, we have to realize that it doesn't matter if you're an advanced student on the highest levels or you're a beginner student. You're still practicing your picking. You're still practicing your scales. You're still developing your rhythm and your strumming, and so these are the core skills. What we're really trying to do is condition students into the routine of practice. We want to condition them to enjoy practicing skills, and I know that is really the challenge, is because they obviously want to play songs, and that's great, and that's why we do it, and that's why we all took up guitar. But it's the conditioning of skills. When you only have to look at sports people, football players, etc. They don't spend a lot of their training time playing in the game. They're actually developing skills, developing how to, ball skills or running skills, sprint training, strength training in the gym. So they're developing all these skills around that actually give them the things that they need to become better players on the field. And that's the philosophy behind most great coaches. And I do want to put this point across, is that this is what I focus on. I focus on what are the great coaches throughout history do. What are the ways that they go about training their teams and their people, and the way that they do it is through developing skills and developing a mindset to develop skills. So what you're trying to do is develop that mindset in your students to work on these things and constantly work on it and get used to it, enjoy it. This is going to be the way it is from here on in. It's not going to stop. Is anyone here who don't practice anymore? Do you think you've done it? You've got it done. You don't need to practice guitar. Is there anyone in this room? No. Right? We all know that if we want to improve, we've got to keep practicing. And the longer you've been playing for, the more you actually have to practice to get those improvements, to get those small increments of improvement. I know myself, if I want to lift the metronome speed just a few notches up, I'm probably going to have to practice another 100 hours, to get that little bit of improvement. That's just the reality of it. And if I don't practice at least an hour a day, then that'll come down. It'll start to decrease. So it doesn't get better in that sense. We can play all the stuff that I can play the things that I wanted to play that when I was a teenager, when I started, my favourite AC/DC songs and the Zeppelin songs and all that, I can do all that now without really probably any need to practice for at least a couple of years. I could probably maintain that. But to go beyond where I am now, I have to keep that routine practice. And that's what we're really trying to do, is constant development, constant improvement. And it's the same with you guys as teachers, constantly improve if you want to be great teachers. You're always going to be a teacher. Let me just say that if you're not teaching guitar students how to play guitar, you're going to be teaching staff how to teach, or you're going to be teaching managers how to manage, or you're going to be teaching people around you how to sort of support your business. You're always going to be leading. That's what an entrepreneur does. They lead the business. They basically get to the front there and they make it happen. So the learning to be a guitar teacher was actually the best thing for me personally, because here I am. I'm still teaching. It doesn't stop. It goes on and on. So becoming a good guitar teacher, or a great guitar teacher, is really going to serve you well. It's going to be what's going to lead you as an entrepreneur. if you look at any of the great entrepreneurs, that's what they were. They were teachers. They taught people and inspired people around them. So we might call it quits there. And oh, sorry, Joachim, did you have a question? Your hand up.
Just had a question about with the skills, like how's some ways to make it more fun to do the skills?
Okay, how to make the skills more fun?
Yeah, more interesting. You just find some like this can be sometimes a bit boring for the kids, especially.
Yeah. The idea is it's a bit like here's a kind of analogy I use, and this is a kind of a parenting analogy, is that when you try and get a child, like let's say my daughter's 5, and you want her to go and clean her teeth and prepare for bed, the worst thing you can say to her is go and clean your teeth. It's the worst thing, because she'll say, oh, I don't want to, or and she'll do all these kind of things, right, to get out of it, cleaning your teeth. The best thing to do is walk her to the bathroom and start cleaning her teeth, but talk about something else. Is to say to her, so what was that show you were watching? What was Tinkerbell doing? Come with me. Keep telling me. Well, Tinkerbell was doing this. Oh, really? Hang on, we'll just get some toothbrush and keep talking. Keep telling me. Yeah. Wow. And what was that guy in the green suit? What was he doing? Blah blah blah. So you don't actually talk about the skills when you're teaching them. This is the thing: is that you explain to them how to do it, but what you're doing is you have to do it in such a way that they don't feel bored. That it's not, all right, we're doing scales, and almost be careful of your body language as well. Be careful of your tone. You can say, all right, guys, we're going to do scales now. Sorry, but yeah, they've got to be done. Or you can go, guess what? We're going to play a song. We're going to play a riff. And, oh, cool, what's it called? It's called the C-scale song. Let's do it. All right, who's ready? It's the same thing. It's just delivered in a different package. All right. There are lots of ways to do it. Keep it upbeat, keep it exciting, and even if you need to, just show them examples of the C scale. How I remember way back when I started, my teacher, I think I was learning the G scale or something, and he showed me Pretty Woman. Wow, cool, that's a famous riff. And he said, this is in the scale. Let's just do the scale first, and then we'll do the riff. How's that sound? Great. All right, so we practiced the scale, and away we went, and I think, I can't remember, but then he showed me where the notes to the riff were, but he just said to me, you're not ready yet, go home and practice that scale for a while, and we'll get on the riff once we can do the scale. All right, cool, I'll practice the scale, because I know that it's going to lead to the riff. So you see what I'm saying? You're always putting that you're putting it into a context, you're keeping it exciting, keeping it fun, and I don't have any problem with this kind. I never really had problems with this sort of stuff. I never had students who were going, boring or picking or boring on scales, because even with my daughter, if I say to her, we're going to do the picking, her response is, that's boring, I don't want to do it. And I'll say, but if I say to her, I'm going to see how fast you can do the picking today. Are you ready? Oh yeah, she goes. She's in for it. She's up for it. Okay. She loves when I present it to her in that way. But if I presented it to her, we're just going to do the picking, then she doesn't like it. So that's where your skill as a teacher comes in. Is you want to keep presenting things in a way that they respond to. And this is the note-taking scenario. This is where take notes on what works and what doesn't, and keep refining your teaching. That's how I did it. I just looked at what worked and what didn't work, and I looked at other teachers, what was working for them, and then I would refine it. I also looked at parents. Who were the good parents? Who were the parents that were getting results from their kids, and why? What were they doing? And so this is really what G4 is all about. It's years of refinement of me taking notes about what works and what doesn't work, and that's how you do anything. Just keep refining it till you get better and better. But if you write a song, then you write the song and you go, oh, that chord doesn't sound quite right, or that doesn't sound so good, or that melody, it's sort of lacking something. So you shift it. You go, well, what if I move it here or move it there? And the end result is, cool, this is a good song. It's the same with your teaching. Just keep refining it. read parenting books. That's my tip. Read parenting books. And look at parenting YouTube and teachers, etc. David said here, I use my girl C major pentatonic. Okay, the song My Girl, is that
Yeah,
what
yeah, just the ascending major pen, mainly for the adults, just to
yeah,
show what it can be done on the C major.
fantastic, excellent.
Yeah.
And look, we all know that Smoke on the Water is based around the pentatonic, the blues scale, sorry, as well. So you can say, all right, guys, we're going to learn the blues scale, bang, and then we're going to learn Smoke on the Water from it because
Yeah.
this is what's in it. So there's
Just a quick question, David, before you wrap up, is I always find that some skills seem to be more popular than others, or get
Yeah.
practiced more than others. So
like
how
the
can you?
reading, like the reading doesn't get practiced so much. Is that kind of what you're referring to?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah. Okay. The reading is interesting because, again, if you can break it down into games, you'll find you'll get a lot better response. And break it up so they're not always reading like with. And this is again, part of your lessons is about coaching the parents and what to do at home, and having them, knowing how to help their kids to learn music. So with my daughter, for instance, she some days she actually likes doing the reading, some days she doesn't. It does vary, and I say to parents, maybe just feel out what they want to do on that particular day, see where they're going. But the reading has to be done. So, but what my daughter really likes doing is drawing. She loves drawing. So I can get the little, I don't know what you call them these days, but we used to call them Etch-a-Sketches things. But what happens is that I can draw the 5 lines, and then I can say, draw me a B note, draw me a D note, draw me an F note. And so she's still learning to read by drawing the notes. And then I can draw a guitar with the frets, and I can say, where's that F note? And she'll go, there. Where's the G note? There. So one day it's drawing, other days it's actually on the guitar doing it. So if you just keep developing different strategies and different games and different ways to teach the skills that they don't want to learn so much, that will make it more fun so they do want to learn those skills.
yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah, definitely. So it's just about the delivery, really, and approach.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just about finding different novel ways for them to do things. There's a program we have. It's popular here in Australia anyway for kids for reading called Reading Eggs, and it's apparently made a huge difference. All the kids that use it end up being like a year, even 2 years ahead in reading at school. By the time they're 6, and it's because they're all getting on their iPads and playing this Reading Eggs game, and it's to teach you to read. It's really what it does. So the more you make things into games, the more kids will respond. Turn everything into a game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great.
Excellent. Alex? Yep.
Yeah, I have to say, with the reading, I had a student who was on the verge of quitting, and as soon as he started using the PGM DVD, going through that, we're talking like a 6-year-old, he's doing 720 minutes like a month, like 6-year-old.
Fantastic.
That's very effective. The DVD, I haven't really tried it with any other people, but yeah, it's very good as well.
Yeah. It's interesting. Different kids pick up on different things, but it's like, Mia, she plays that CD from the Progressive Guitar Method book. It drives me crazy. Like, it's so, I don't know if you've listened to it, but it's terrible. She loves playing it. It's like, but I just say, okay, well, if you want to play it, that's cool. They're the songs you learn anyway.
It's like wheels on the bus go around and around. Like, I wouldn't, not easy listening for me, but like, kids love it.
The Wheels on the Bus is like fantastic compared to the songs on this. This is like click, 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 ding, 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 and she'll listen to that. It's like, oh God, this is like water torture. But yeah, kids will pick up on different things, and it's good for her because she's hearing what she's going to be learning to play. So yeah. The thing to keep in mind here is teaching me is good because it's helping me to stay on top of what the things that we're talking about here. I'm going through these processes with her, and she's learning ukulele at school now because at her age they will only teach them uke in the first year she's in prep. And what's happening is that she's now getting into the uke because she's got a group that's at school, and this is where group is really important with kids. Is that once the group, her reading has improved dramatically because of the fact that she's now in a kind of a semi-competitive situation. She's got a group of kids around her. She's got a teacher. She's got all this going on. So she now is working harder at keeping up with these things. So that's why, again, that's a big benefit of group. And often the students you'll have the most trouble with are the ones who don't have any friends who are learning guitar, who don't have any family at home who are learning guitar. One of the tips they give parents, which actually will help kids at school to do better, is the more involved parents are. In other words, when parents ask their kids when they get home, what did you learn today at school? And I remember reading this with Richard Branson. He said that it was his mother that made him who he was, because his mother used to ask him every day, routinely, what did you learn today? And not necessarily at school, but just what did you learn today? And he had to come up with something that he learned, and he had to say to his mother every day. So he's now got this where every day he looks for something new to learn, and it was his mother conditioning him to say, what did you learn today? So you can tell this to parents. Say to parents, ask your child after their guitar lesson, what did you learn? Show me what you did. When we get home, show me what you learned. And that's what I do with Mia. It's every day I say after at dinner time, what did you learn today at school? So teaching parents what to do, remember that it's the parents who spend the most of the time with the child. So teaching them what to do and carrying that over at home is where you're going to have the most success. If you focus just on the child, you're not going to have a lot of success. You're going to struggle because the child will go home, put the guitar in the cupboard if mum and dad don't care. That's really how it works. All right. Any last questions? We look like we've gone 90 minutes. I think we'll leave it there. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Ben and David. I know it's very late there, so it says an enormous amount that you guys are tuning in at this time. And look, let's have a session sometime that works for you guys, because I think we need to be fair on you guys.
Fine.
I'm going to be in Japan next week for a month, so I'll still be obviously contactable, but I'm not quite sure what's going on as far as the internet and everything there, because I'm not normally when I go there I'll stay at my wife's family's house, but this time I'll be in Tokyo at various hotels, and I don't know what the reception will be like. So forgive me if we don't get as good a reception, but just letting you know that that's where I'll be. Until then, thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you.
All right, see you later. Bye-bye.
See you later, guys.
Bye.